So I'll start with development institution. There is also one topic theme inside the unit on development institutions where we discuss about NGOs, IGOs and various development agencies apart from government. So far we have discussed about some of the government action in terms of development, right? And how media could be used for development. There are different case studies of using media for development, be it radio for development, television for development, internet for development, right? We have discussed that in the last classes. We have also discussed about communication strategies which you are supposed to use in order to bring up a development agenda and also to implement it. So there are different communication strategies which you are supposed to uh, understand first and adopt one particular strategy uh, which you are supposed to implement. Okay, and that has to be based on the communication based assessment, that is PRA, which you will be conducted. And we discussed about some of the theoretical framework, you might also say philosophy, okay, of development. Many people say that this paper is highly philosophical, but this is actually the very core paper of development. Without understanding development communication, your establishment, your knowledge in this field is also halfway around. So this happens to be a very core paper. In fact, political communication came much later into this discipline. But whatever we understood as a theory is also part of development. Even media established with a purpose, with an intent to bring development for the society. Initially, when we talk about IIMC, establishment of educational institution, so there is also a developmental goal. Okay, so role of media, how they could be used for development, and hence this paper is important. So apart from those philosophical and theoretical component, I'm also trying to make it a bit practical oriented, and hence I have given you those assignments which you are supposed to do. There may be many assignments. I can give you a written assignment also. You can write news, but with the help of AI, you can write a news in a second, right? It will not take time. That you can do at class also, because I cannot restrict you to use AI. I even want you to use AI, but first to apply your cognition in using AI. You should not rely on AI cognition. So you write, AI can give you a refurbished version. AI can give you a refined one. But you have to develop content on your own. That is very important. So there are different AI nowadays. So this is a kind of brief I'm giving you. Everybody knows in video we are using AI. In making photographs we are using AI. In writing content we are using AI. You can also make it academic tone. You can make it formal tone. You can also give it a conversational tone to content. So it's very easy for you to come up with content, to write content, manage content. Okay. There are also some ethics involved. Ethics integrities have been involved, but you see that there are nuances which we cannot avoid and which we cannot ignore. Also, sometimes some paper also, like good paper also, will also not get published. Sometimes you see AI-driven paper will also get published. So there are some nitty-gritties and the nuances that we know. Okay, but the thing is that the content, what I want is that you can develop your own content. And for course, because I have seen this in many of the answer script during the first year, you follow the AI, and I could get an answer which is AI driven answer. Means the answer you might have typed some concept, and AI has generated that concept, and some of the parameters AI has generated. So that can be acceptable when you want to understand the concept. But in exam, two, three of you writing the same concept, and I know that that is like AI driven concept. So that is not acceptable because I have given you some parameters, some factors, some aspect and dimension of one particular concept. So you can add more with the help of AI. Okay, ma'am has given me those concepts. What AI could give me? What else AI could give me? What additional concept AI could give me should be integrated, but not necessarily that you will actually write the AI driven, AI generated answer. Hence, I am telling you that use your cognition is very important in exam. For all of you, you need to use your cognition. And also nowadays there are people from vernacular mediums, okay, and they are very good at writing in vernacular medium. I have seen, but whenever their articulation in English and other language comes, yeah, there is a fallback that I have also noticed. In that case, AI will be quite helpful because you have so many concepts. So AI will be helpful to translate it. AI will be helpful even to give you more comprehension about that concept. Okay, and you use it wisely. Use that technology very wisely. It's important for you. So I will discuss about the development institutions. So here, when you talk about development institution, basically we are focusing on IGOs and NGOs. Those are development organizations. We see that NGOs happen to be a very important global force at present time. Apart from the state, we call it a non-state actor. We call it non-profit organization. But there is also a definition of NGOs instead of non-profit, non-state actors, which play a role not only in development, national development, but also in various social activities. Okay, hence we are saying that it has happens to be a global force in multifarious developmental activities. NGOs happens to play a very conspicuous role. Okay, so when we talk about the NGO, NGOs are basically a social service. How do we define a concept? So we say that these are basically NGOs are basically social services. These are basically social institutions driven by a task and also formed by people with a common interest or formed by like-minded people having a commonality of interest to betterment, to bring upliftment of the people, betterment of the people, and to carry out different form of development, and having a very flexible administration, and also you see flexibility in terms of decision making and on-time delivery of services. That's how we understand NGO. So here, when we have this broad concept to discuss, we actually see it has that connotation called social service. So NGO connotes any social service or institutions, right? Then we see the structure happens to be there in the concept. Then whole structure of this NGO, we usually call that NGOs might have a formal or informal structures, but there is a flexibility in the structure, flexibility in terms of decision making of those who are involved. Okay, and also the delivery of service which is always in time. So you don't have to wait for long because there is no red tapeism, there is no bureaucratic and procedural problem here in NGOs. Okay, so hence structure wise we see that some flexibility is there, and hence they can be proactive pro people organization. So many a time when we say that development is one particular segment, government has been investing upon, and government is supposed to work for development. But in certain policies, certain actions, government cannot become proper. Government, the effectiveness of government is lacking, and then we get to find the NGOs into this particular field. Now, NGOs, when we say We cannot say all organizations are NGOs, but NGOs do have a voluntary attitude here. When you say social service itself is a voluntary nature of the NGOs. So you might say that NGOs are also bound not only by the common interest, not NGOs, the people, NGOs formed by the people, like-minded people, bound by the common interest, and they do have that sense of volunteerism, sense of altruism while delivering the services. Okay, because you see, initially, earlier also, there are people without having any salary, without getting any payment, they usually involve. And when we talk about the voluntary services, we also have another concept called voluntary agencies, VOs, or voluntary organization, VA and VOs. We have those concepts, right? Apart from those NGOs. But you see, when you say NGOs, NGOs have some characteristics. First one is that NGOs are supposed to have legal status, right? When you say legal status, NGOs are to be registered with Societies Registration Act, Trust Act, Trade Union Act. Okay, so that registration is very important, or Cooperative Act. So there are different acts under which NGOs are supposed to get registration, whether it works as a trust, it works as a cooperative, this agency works as a cooperative organization. You can also say it's a grassroots organization, right? You can also say it is a non-profit organization. There are innumerable number of terminologies which are interchangeable in terms of NGOs. But NGOs are supposed to be registered. When I say NGOs, they are supposed to be registered under Societies Registration Act. They are supposed to be registered under Trust Act or Cooperative Act or Trade Union Act. Okay. Now you see, apart from that, NGOs are to be pro-people. We call it pro-people. Pro-people, and NGOs have certain values. So those values actually derive from that socio-political experiences and circumstances. We talk about the people. So NGOs is not simply an institution, it is bound by the people. So humans are there. Human values actually bound the NGOs. So here when you talk about the values of the NGOs, that is definitely pro-people. Pro-people itself is based on human spirit, humanity spirit. But human values, when you talk human values like socio-political circumstances, social norms, social traditions, that bound that NGOs. Okay, apart from the religious belief, that also bound any kind of NGOs. So when you talk about a non-profit organization, many school, trade unions, and hospital can also come. But not all non-profit agencies, non-profit organizations are voluntary organizations. Okay, that is one thing, and not all voluntary organizations have a purpose or intent to work for the development. And you need to actually find out the difference. So we have number of school college registered as even under even Societal Registration Act, but not necessarily they are serving as a non-profit organization. So when you talk about this non-profit organization, so they are supposed to have that intent uh, not to gallop and not to use the profit, whatever is being derived even from the donors, from the surplus, and not to be used for business purpose. It is to be distributed for welfare of the people. And that is the sole purpose of non-profit organization. So they are not profit oriented. So whatever profit they derive also, after delivering the service, they are to be distributed to the society. They are not supposed to amass those profit. Okay, they are not supposed to hold that profit. Hence they are non-profit. And also there are organizations, they are not that voluntary in that intent. There is also professional code of conduct, they are salaried. Okay, so not necessarily they will come and join just because they have that utter sacrificial intent. Okay, so you see, when we talk about the voluntary spirit, so that sacrificial intent is there. So you are supposed to have that self-sacrificial intent. We have that Mahatma Gandhi. We talk about those social reformer initially. Apart from those, we actually can see this. So many organizations have formed nationalistic organization before independence. Okay, and those are basically you see named after the leadership style, and they do have a sacrificial tendency. So we can also discuss about different types of volunteerism, but that may come later. First, you need to have the basic understanding of the concept. So one is the legal status, which is very important for NGOs. So NGOs are supposed to have that legal status to be registered. Okay. And then these values are very important, and values can be derived from the socio-economic circumstances, religious belief, where they actually locate. Okay, the institution locate, and from the surrounding, that ambience, they get the values formed. Okay, the surrounding ambience, people's traditions, belief will form their values. Then we also have this poor people, and we also have another thing, non-profit, that is also another characteristics. Then we have that quick in decision making is one particular like an aspect of NGO. As I have already told you, this is an organization and structural component, very quick in decision making. All NGOs are flexible in terms of organizations, do not have any kind of red tapeism. Okay, they see that okay, the interest involved, good interest involved, so they will simply like do that work for you. So if they set the larger interest involved of the people, they will not delay. But it is also not devoid of the lacunas and the problems and the gaps. I'm not saying that there is no red tapeism at all in organizing. Normally, NGOs are devoid of those red tapeism, which you get to see in any kind of bureaucratic organization, in public sector undertaking, in government organizations, because there are so many papers and there is a bureaucracy. So instead of we are thinking about the governance, so those 8 principles of governance are yet to be executed. It's not yet functioning properly. Although we talk about good governance is actually becomes a joke nowadays. It becomes a joke because not each and everyone has experienced that good governance. Okay, so we get to find that okay, NGOs are hence NGOs are agent of development. Now you see, when you say IGOs are also some governing organization, government organization. But here we say intergovernmental organization. This is for non-governmental organization. So government is not supposed to control the structure and function of the NGOs, the activities of the people who are involved, and hence they are non-governmental organization. But when you say IGOs represents intergovernmental organization. That means IGOs are made of state. When you say made of state, IGOs, you can say United Nations organization is itself is a IGOs. It is made of state, and there are also different specialized agencies there in United Nations organization. Like we have who is also a body formed of member states as well as some NGOs. They also work in consultation with some of the NGOs, and there are also state members in the World Health organizations, and there are different specialized agencies where you get to find membership of states are registered, and hence they are IGOs because those are specialized agencies of United Nations organization. And United Nations organization, now at present you see how many members, how many state members are there, and hence you see IGOs are basically state members. Okay, so when you say NGOs, it also has a role in terms of world governance, we can say. Okay, governance of the world, because when we see delivery of the services, whenever some some gap in terms of government delivery of services, then we think about NGOs, right? So in fact NGOs meet that particular gap when government cannot act, because government, even if they can come up with many more slogans to think about to work for the people, do for the people, they cannot be that pro-poor. When it comes to ground level, they cannot be that pro-poor, and hence we talk about those grassroots level organization. We talk about those institution at a grassroots level, and also voluntary organizations, NGOs and non-profit organizations who can work, which can work for the poor, and they are also guided by different ideologies. You say that NGOs may have ideologies nowadays. Contemporary NGOs may not have may also have ideologies and may not have ideologies. Now you see, initially when NGOs were formed, they do have certain ideologies, but nowadays we focus more on professionalism in NGOs. instead of ideologies. So when we talk about even role of NGOs in United Nation organization, you also see in United Nation organization it is uh, also an expression of human faith and belief. That's what is also written in the very first word of the United Nations Charter. In the beginning of the United Nations Charter, we can see that it is written that United Nation organization is the the faith-based organization basically which work for the human dignity. Here when you say faith-based, we are talking about the general faith, we are not talking about religious faith. Basically it's an expression which work for the dignity and welfare of human being. And NGOs happen to be one unit, or you see the one force in United Nations organization. If we talk about role of NGOs in world government, so we actually see that NGO also plays a role in United Nations organization as a task-oriented group. It is a task-oriented group. We also have a process-oriented goal and task-oriented goal, but here United Nations focus more on task-oriented goal of NGO. So United Nations itself defined that it is a task-oriented groups. These are task-oriented groups. So because of the task-oriented goals that NGOs have, apart from the process-oriented goal. So said that this is a task-oriented group driven by the common interest to work for the human dignity and also for the social welfare. Okay, now you see that when we talk about some of the international NGOs, they some of them have general status, some of them have roster status, some of them also have a special status. So when you talk about the status, this is important in terms of understanding the NGOs in the world governance. Okay, so NGOs has a role not only in democratic process but also in world governance. So then we get to find the role that Economic and Social Council, that is one organ of United Nations, that organ has also answering some role to the existing NGOs. Okay, based on the line of activities of those NGOs. So when we say the line of activities of the NGOs, those activities, those goals, those purposes and objective of the NGOs may fall in line with the agenda of ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council. Okay, and there are also some agendas, some NGOs which are partially fulfilling some of the agendas of ECOSOC, and some other NGOs, they might have a very distant connection with those agendas ECOSOC has highlighted. So when we say role of NGOs in world governments, NGOs are enjoying a consultative status, okay, with ECOSOC. Means this organization, we talk about IGOs. IGOs usually consult various NGOs in terms of various developmental activities. So you also see in World Health Organization are so many NGOs you get to find having consultative status, and the WHO has also maintained a network with the professional and health based NGOs. Okay, some of the professional network it has been trying to boost, right? We talked about this United Nations Human Rights, that is High Commissioner for Refugee. They have also consultative status with numerous state NGOs, local NGOs, even regional NGOs. They have consultative status with those NGOs and try to help people who are that is also who become the refugee or victim of war or civil or any kind of civil right conflicts, or you see any kind of societal conflict, religious conflict. They're trying to extend their help to those. So like that way, many NGOs are having those consultative status with the organization of United Nations. Understood? And when I say consultative status, they do have a general consultative status based on the line of activities and objective. Okay, and many NGOs have special consultative status based on the agendas they work on. And some of the NGOs have a roster status, means they are nominally involved, they are not fully involved. The agendas, each and every non-governmental organization have certain agendas, we call it objectives. Without objectives, they cannot think about development. In terms of development, it's such a vast and broad field. They are supposed to work in certain work for certain segment of the people and in certain areas, and in that areas and for those segments they decide some objectives and the goal, and those goals are being aligned. If being aligned with the agendas of the ECOSOC, then and those goals, all the goals are also meeting the agendas of the ECOSOC, then they will get the general status. If they are meeting part of the goals of the ECOSOC, then they will be attaining the special consultative status. If their goals has a distant link and connection with the agendas of the ECOSOC, then they will get a roster status. Understood? So like that way, NGOs are having consultative status with IGOs. So that is called NGO linkages. Okay, we call it NGO linkages, and here what we have said that we will have the general status, special status, and roster status. This is a consultative status of NGOs. Okay, consultative status of NGOs with IGOs. With IGOs. Now you also know what are IGOs and what are NGOs. Understood? Okay. So this is important in terms of understanding also the role of NGOs in world government. Role of NGOs in world government. Okay, so like that way you can understand NGO linkages and role of NGO in world governance. They themselves engage in various kind of development activities. Okay, understood? हाँ ना नहीं है क्या है, समझा कि नहीं? Understood? समझ में आया? Sorry? Consultative status के नीचे ये जो है ये status है, general status, special status और roster status. These are three types of statuses, and you might have with international organization or intergovernmental organization. You can say intergovernmental organization, you can say international organization. When you say intergovernmental organization, those are, you say that United Nations itself is an intergovernmental organization. We also have NATO, CETO. You might know about NATO, CETO, right? These are also intergovernmental organizations formed by the state. All the specialized agencies of United Nations are formed by state parties, and hence it does have an governmental status. It's formed by the state parties. So one state is involved. Okay, in those organizations, when we say IGOs, you say you actually need to have an understanding of United Nations organization here, but we do not have that much that extensive study. We do not have to do that extensive study. You can simply understand about some of the organs of United Nations. Then you have basic understanding, some general knowledge you will have. How it operates. Then you see IGOs. It's so simple. यहाँ पे तो ना समझने के लिए कुछ भी नहीं है, मुझे लग नहीं रहा. तो यहाँ पे IGOs, intergovernmental organization, which is also shaped by number of states. Okay, formed by number of states. लेकिन NGO formed by people. यहाँ पे स्टेट नहीं आता है, गवर्नमेंट नहीं आता है. ठीक है. सो हम लोग जब बोलते हैं कि NGO क्या है, तो बोलते हैं कि NGOs are formed by people, like-minded people having a commonality of interest. Okay, but जब हम लोग IGOs बोलते हैं, this is formed by the state. यहाँ पे लोग नहीं है, एक पूरा कंट्री, एक राष्ट्र वहाँ चला जाता है. ठीक है। और एनजीओज का जो रिलेशन है वो आईजीओज के साथ वो कैसा है, तो वो relation has been defined, that relationship has been defined by ECOSOC, that is Economic and Social Council, that is one organ of United Nations Organization. ओके, तो वो इकोसॉक ने वो स्टेटस डिफाइन किया है कि स्टेटस ऐसा है कि हम लोग कंसल्ट करेंगे और सारे एनजीओज को एक एक वो स्टेटस दे देंगे ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द एजेंडाज दे आर वर्किंग ऑन. अगर इफ दे हैव कवर्ड ऑल द एजेंडाज दैट वी हैव परस्यूड, हाँ, तो इन लोगों को जनरल स्टेटस दे दिया जाएगा. हम लोग कंसल्ट करेंगे, ये तो जनरल एनजीओ है, हमारा जो भी काम है इसके साथ तो हमेशा एक अलाइनमेंट होता ही है, तो उन लोगों को बुला लो कंसल्टेशन के लिए, ठीक है. अगर ये स्पेशल स्टेटस है तो ठीक है, हाँ, हमारे जितने भी लिस्ट है एजेंडा के लिस्ट डेवलपमेंटल, जो एजेंडा बोलते दीज आर डेवलपमेंटल एजेंडा, दे हैव प्रिपेयर्ड देयर डेवलपमेंटल एजेंडा, then they also form a consultative status to the NGOs. So see, find out that NGO have a special status in the sense that NGOs do not cover, those NGOs do not cover all the agendas. तो उन लोगों का एक स्पेशल स्टेटस दिया जाता है और एक स्पेशल फील्ड में वो लोग काम कर रहे हैं, सपोज वुमेन डेवलपमेंट में, वुमेन लिटरेसी पे, तो उन लोगों को एक स्पेशल स्टेटस दिया जाएगा. अगर ये सारे जो भी हैं, जो भी परस्यू कर रहा है हर एक गोल, even if they have segmentized their objective, but still they are trying to meet all the agendas in the EcoShop related to development. Okay, so उन लोगों को जनरल स्टेटस दिया जाएगा. और there are also NGOs, they do have objectives, they do have agendas which will meet a very distant theme and agendas of the EcoShop, they will get a roster status. सो ये लोग थोड़ा डिस्टेंट है, इन लोगों का जो गोल्स है हमारे जितने भी गोल्स है ना उसके साथ मिलते हैं, लेकिन डायरेक्टली नहीं मिलते, इनडायरेक्टली मिलते हैं. ठीक है, हो गया, और ये इम्पोर्टेंट है हमारे. सो you understood about the NGOs because I could actually see only the blank faces and there is no participation. And that is not encouraging for a teacher also. So you are not supposed to come here only to attend the class. You are also supposed to participate in the class. And if you do not understand, then you say that I haven't understood anything. Okay? So that is important. Because I am just seeing your blank face, I am repeating the same thing. But you need to tell me that, ma'am, I have not understood. You need to tell me, then only I will understand. No, that you haven't understood anything. Otherwise, how will I understand? After attending the class, you will go, you will forget, and you will come up with different excuses. And one more thing, I am telling you that I have given you assignment in the very first month, in the month of August only. Although I have jotted that down, written that assignment in the month of September first week. Okay, so that you get sufficient amount of time, okay, to work on that assignment. Hence, I have been telling you to work on the assignment on time because I have given the third term assignment also. After mid-term, you are also supposed to do another assignment. I have given both this assignment together. First, you submit the first term assignment. On the basis of the first term assignment, on the basis of my evaluation, you will be working on the third term assignment. So, I have given you sufficient time to work on those assignments. Okay, if you have any confusion, you are free to come. I have been telling you. And therefore, you are free to come. You can give me a call. You can also write down the questions, write down your queries in WhatsApp group. I will be there to solve it out. Okay? And that's one thing. And maybe I could actually say it's a class of 43 students. And how many students we have today? Yeah, 15 students. Hardly 15 students usually come. So I usually record the class, but in most of the classes I get to see only to 15 students. If this is the level of attendance, what is our rigorosity? Like, it doesn't make any sense, no? So we come prepare for you and to give you some knowledge here. There is no participation, there is nothing. We also have other responsibilities to finish that course on time, but actually you do not show any interest. So this is heartaining. This is heartaining. Okay. Okay, fine then. Okay. Now you see, you understood the very concept of NGO. No? You understood, no? So we have on the basis of structure and organization of NGO, we can actually see flexibility of structure, timely delivery of the services, pro-poor, the proactive pro-poor, that happen to be one very characteristics of NGO, right? That is a value-related, like definition of NGO. Then you will see the legal status, that is very important, right? And voluntary and welfare activities, engage in welfare activities and voluntary in NGO. So when we talk about voluntary services, you will also see that uh, during ancient time, uh, we find trees. Even UN Sun has also written that trees were also planted in the street side. So that is by the people, by the community people. These are some of the insights, traces in the ancient time that we have regarding the voluntary action and activities. Then also we have people, community of people, they dug this that well and that tank and drink water. These activities were there during even Harappan civilization, you see. And then we get to find in ancient time there is a Adhinam system and we have Dharamsala system was there. In Dharamsala, people usually, community of people, they mobilized a fund from the community and they distribute it for establishment of hospitals, schools, okay, and other institution and premises. Okay, so this Dharamsala concept is also based on voluntary activities. So when you say NGOs, NGOs are basically there to, like basically there to work for the betterment of the people, for the upliftment of the society. So that voluntariness is always there, altruism is always there, and the earlier days also we get to find that voluntariness, like in terms of dharamsalas and in terms of adhinams. When we say adhinams, adhinam is also a system of free boarding and lodging for students. In the past, we have a system of adhinams. Okay, adhinam. Dharamsala, you all know. Apart from that, we also have uh, various kind of instances uh, prior to independence. Even we have Friends in Need Society. Friends in Need Society formed in India in 1858. That was the first traces of, you see, a formal organization and voluntary organization in India. Friends in Need Society. That came in 1858. Okay, and during these independence, during the years of struggle for independence, we get to find different reformist organizations like Ramakrishna Mission, Irish Samaj, then also Theosophical Society, Anjuman Trust. So many organizations came up for, you see, voluntary activities. They devoted for voluntary activities. They have been working, for you all know, for even widow remarriages, for child education, for women education, for even that against those Satida Pratha, against dowry debt, etc. They have been working a lot, and the basic goal was related to that education and literacy. So they have been working for literacy. When you talk about the social origin of voluntary organization, you could actually see there are organizations which are of social revolutionary, which came later. Prior to social revolutionary, we also have nationalistic reformist organization. Okay, so nationalistic reformist organization are there prior to 1950s, 60s, which are basically those Theosophical Society, even this Christian missionary, then also Indian social worker. They also they tried to work for the people. So those are basically part of nationalistic, you see, national reformer, and one is also entirely social reformer. So there are three kind of organization. One is social revolutionary, which is very contemporary. One is nationalistic reformer organization. All those, you see, that Theosophical Societies, Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj are nationalistic reformer organization, and also social reformer organization, basically those Christian missionaries. That's how we can categorize on the basis of social origin of organizations, and if we try to find the traces of organization in the history. Okay, and then when after this, what we actually need to see is the leadership style. Leadership does have the influence in the organizational style and the ideology. Now we see that organizations are not that ideological, right? They are much more professional, just because of the modernization, impact of modernization. You see, we think more about managerial expertise, professional expertise of the people who are involved in volunteerism, right? We want trained people in volunteerism or social work. They need to understand the method of social work methods. We focus more on the methods now, focus more on the approaches of this organization. But there was a time people voluntarily engage themselves, right? So then we see that they're on the basis of the ideology they join those organizations. So there are Gandhian organizations, right? So Harijan Sevak Singh is Sevak Sangh is one Gandhian organization inspired by Gandhian ideology. We also have socialist organization inspired by socialism, like Ram Mohan Luhia, Jai Prakash Narayan, J.P. Narayan. Okay, they also inspired another line of organization. Then Marxists, they also have their own ideology in organization, a line of organization formed by that Marxist ideology. Okay, so we get to find that ideology has a role, and apart from that, there are some organizations which we can define by virtue of size. You see, we call local grassroots groups. Those are very small community groups. We call community organizations, self-help group, even that women club, etc., like youth club. These are also some form of organization. Those are basically grassroots level organization. These are small in size, and then we also have medium in size. And based on the number of part-time and full-time members, based on the salaried staff and non-salaried staff, based on the fund and grants and assistance they have received from donors, from even government, and from other members of the society. So we can define the size of the organization in small, medium, or large, or you can actually say mega organization. That's international organization. We usually go large, and that's what mega organization. Then we have medium level, that is the regional. They have a scope of activities across the region. That's a medium-sized organization. Scope of the activities across the region, across 2-3 districts. Small organization, they're located in one villages, and they cover the range of activities are basically across a few villages, 2-3 villages, you see, or village development block, one VD. So one block of villages they usually concentrate on. So based on that, we can also categorize organization and fund which they could generate. Some organizations they're working on crore project, like from lakhs to 50 lakhs to crores of project they usually handle. So they are basically large organizations. Then also there are some organizations they survive or they simply say that we can sustain with the help of that 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs. So these are basically you see the small organizations, or even there are organizations that they don't go beyond 50 lakhs. Okay, so the payment is also less, and intent is more voluntary in that case. So intent of those members who are involved in the activities will also define the magnanimity of the organization, the size of the organization. Then we also have organization types, like based on the problem, based on the logistic, based on the scope, based on the involvement of the people, based on the actors, we can have some organization. When you talk about the problem, they actually this organization deals with a societal problem, developmental problem, right? So hence, they also define what do. They, based on the problem, they define their intent and the purpose. Okay, there are some relief organizations, charity organizations, philanthropic organizations. There are also organizations who are working for social development. That's a different category of organization. There are organizations who are working for economic development. There are organizations who are working for service delivery. There are organizations working for empowerment, and some organizations are known as networking organizations. So you get to find this kind of classification of NGOs based on the clientele they serve. Okay, based on the problem they are supposed to address, based on the problem, based on the purpose. So based on the problem they decide the purpose, based on the scope of activities, range of activities. And also you see, based on the you see time in the sense, when you say that relief related NGOs, some NGOs have been formed just after any kind of like the biggest calamity, be it earthquake, after flood, to provide some like relief or to rescue those flood marooned people, okay, relieve those flood marooned villages. So they can instantaneously formed. And there are also some organizations, they have a combined goal. Maybe they are working in social sector, but they might have another combined goal. They are working in charity, philanthropic activities and relief related activities. So in that way, also they can release their goal. They can also combine their goal. So here in this case, you say that time frame is very instant, immediate. Any relief related activities time frame is very instant. Okay. Then we have also some organization, we call it social development. Those are basically working in locality development. So they are conscientizing people. They are creating awareness among the people. Those organizations are mobilizing the people because they have seen that there is a general inertia. General inertia happens to be the problem here. And based on that problem, they decide that they will mobilize the community. They will also create some institution, village level institution. They will also try to democratize all the institution and the process in that particular village, in those areas which they cover, which they are working on. Based on that problem, problem is general inertia. That's like they are apathetic. People are apathetic. Okay, people do not take part in any kind of activity. So their goal is social development. So your timeline is not immediate. Timeline will be definitely from 5 years, minimum 5 years. They will take 5 to 10 years. Okay, and that is a project cycle. They work as a project. Okay, so there is a project cycle life. So they bring up some project. Project is also end. Their activities will also end. Okay, and in way of doing that project, they will mobilize that community. Okay, in way of doing that project, they will form social institution. In way of doing that project, they will also build a democratic platform in that village. But organization, how will you define that organization? Social development. Organization working for social development, not a relief and charity or philanthropic organization. Right? So like that way, we also have organization working for economic development. They are basically pro-poor. Here in social development, we see there are organizations who are basically not that pro-poor. They are pro-poor, but they may not be pro-government. Social organization may be pro-poor, but they may not be pro-government. They might be non-conformist also. They might not get the fund only from the government. They might got the fund. They might have got the fund from other donors and private sectors, other charity organization, other trust. Okay, they might have got the fund. Not necessarily that they will conform to the mandates of the government. But here, when you talk about economic development, so these organizations are pro-poor as well as pro-government. But in social development, organizations are pro-poor and may not be pro-government. Okay, I'm not saying anti-government, but not necessarily that they will conform to each and every that guidelines of the government just because they haven't procured all the fund from the government. It's not like that they're dependent on government. So there are certain organizations that are conformist variety. There are certain organizations which are non-conformist variety. Like organizations working for the economic development are conformist type. Okay, they cannot show some kind of innovation or flexibility because they're basically dependent on government fund and they have to follow the government line. So you might question why they are called non-governmental. They are getting, but when we talk about procurement of the fund and the project, they can rely upon the government fund. But they are not supposed to be governed. But yeah, there is a mandate that if you are getting the fund, you are supposed to follow. That is the mandate they are supposed to follow because you are getting the fund. Hence, they are not against the government. If they're now see, for organization working for economic development will work for income generation, work for job generation. They come up with various schemes related to like how to implement those schemes. They also um, help people of one community to get jobs. But that is another again based on the government line of agenda. They will work in government line of agenda, being very conformist. But in social development field, some organization are working, they can innovate new ideas. Okay. And not necessarily that they will have to be conformist. Their goal is to conscientize people. Their goal is to make people aware. They are supposed to finish one project, and project might be funded by another donor, maybe IGOs. IGOs can fund a project. Okay, UNDP funded project, UNESCO funded project, UNICEF funded project they are working on. Okay, and they are supposed to follow the mandate of the donor, but not of the government. Okay, so you actually see, so it is important, and you have understood, I guess. Okay, then you have empowerment centric NGOs. There are some NGOs which are empowerment centric. Those empowerment centric NGOs are uh, focusing on that social action. So I have been discussing about social action, some social action principles, some social action tactics and strategies are there. So empowerment centric organization basically conscientize people, making people empower. Even goal is also very aligned to social development. Then there are also some NGOs which are networking NGOs. Networking NGOs are basically working as a federation or an umbrella to connect to other, you see, like-minded NGOs or working NGOs working in the similar field. Those are basically networking NGOs. So their goal is to establish that network, establish a coalition among the existing NGOs, create a network among the existing NGOs, and to work for the development, to work for the poor. Okay, and also work for the agenda. Okay, like that way we can have different numbers of NGOs. There are some organizations working only for one single clientele, means working only for women. There are also organizations working for different segment of people in their area of coverage. They are called multi-clientele organization. So single clientele organization or multi-clientele organization. If you any approach any NGO, then you'll need to find whether it is a single clientele organization or a multi-clientele. Okay, so like that way we can have a classification or distinct division of organization. Okay. Any question you have? Before I jump to the next topic, I do not have much time, but still I'll take some. Memory not come. I'll take some more time. Any questions? No? Any questions? Okay. Then we have actually seen the IGOs and NGOs linkage. Now we will see government, GO and NGOs linkage. This is GO and NGOs as a government and NGOs linkage. That was IGOs and NGOs. Okay. And this is called government and NGOs linkage. Now see, we are talking about development institutions and organizations. So you need to understand the connection between these organizations. There are many organizations that work as interest aggregator and articulators. So we talk about pressure groups, right? We talk about interest groups. These interest groups are also NGOs. Many NGOs are also called pressure group because when they actually try to focus on the social justice, try to eliminate the social injustice, establish social equality, then we actually see that their goal is higher than mere economic and social development. Okay, and hence we see uh, that they work as a pressure group in that case. Pressure group, pressurize the government, pressurize the lobby, pressurize the legislator, okay, to bring change in any kind of policy. So any NGOs can also take part, work as a pressure group to bring any change into any kind of policy. Okay, so hence we see that when you discuss about the government NGO linkages, we actually have a history. So, but we will not discuss about the history of that relationship of government and NGOs here in India. Simply, we see now, as of late, the kind of status that NGOs are having and their relationship with the government. First, we have already discussed there is a conformist and non-conformist status. There are also certain bodies. So, when we understand the relationship between government and NGOs, then we need to understand those existing bodies, existing organizations, and their task in creating a liaison between government and NGOs. Okay, so when you talk about the liaison, they create a kind of interactions. That linkage, those organizations, those bodies usually create. Like we have Central Social Welfare Board, you all know. We also have uh, Cupboard. Cupboard is also a combination of cart and padi. Right. We also have award. Okay, we also have CCAV. So these are some of the organizations. I'll also write down the elongated form or of this abbreviation. So those are some of the organizations which are helping to establish the liaison between the NGOs and the government. Okay, because you see that in 7 5-year plan we get to see that more than 150 billion is earmarked to NGOs, and that is to be channeled through the cupboard. There are also different ministries of the government. They do have separate mechanism to deal with NGOs. Okay, different ministries, Ministry of Rural Development, Ministry of Forest. Then we actually see there are different ministries, child and women and child welfare. They do have different mechanism to work and interact with NGOs. Okay, and they do have separate mechanism. So funds which are being allocated to its ministries are also earmarked. Some amount is earmarked to NGOs, and that fund is to be channelized through organization like CAPART. Understood? So initially we also had Central Social Welfare Board, and when did it came? Do you know when did it come? When did it establish? In 1952, 53. Central Social Welfare Board, CSWB, Central Social Welfare Board. It was established in 1953. Okay, so Central Social Welfare Board is basically working on training the NGO members and also design the agendas of development. They're working in along with they're working in coordination with NGO, define and design the agendas of development. They also provide training to those the NGO members. Okay, in their specific field. So that is also they have been investing on the welfare activity. When you say welfare activities, that has also a very broad welfare. Welfare we find in charity, welfare we find in any kind of philanthropic activities, in relief, and in any kind of service delivery. Suppose there is no school, so we will build the infrastructure, is also a kind of welfare. We create a beneficiaries, we create a target and beneficiaries. So basically, Central Social Welfare Board create that target, create the beneficiaries, working in line, working along with the NGOs, in cooperation with the NGOs. Okay? So that was the basic task. But later we see that we have also CARD, that is Council for Advancement of Rural Technology. That organization came in 1983. Then there is another organization we call Hunger Campaign Committee. This organization is known as Hunger Campaign Committee, and this is called the PADI. That is also People's Action for Development India. And both these organizations got merged in 1986. Both these organizations got merged and they become CAPAR. CAPAR. Okay. People's Action for no, Council of People's Action uh, and Real Technology. People's Action for Development and Real Technology. CAPAR. You see the full form of CAPAR. You see the full form of CAPAR. This is important. And now all the funds are basically channeled through the CAPAR. And CAPAR did this administer this training and all. So first it was Council, what was the World Technology, and the People Action for Development India. You see, or not council, sen. You see, this full form, card full form. You see, what is the full form of card? What is the full form of CAPAR? Okay, so these are the organization which has been working to bring the liaison, bring the interaction between the government and NGOs. Okay, and we also see that many times government provide the fund, but the problem is to follow the mandate for the NGOs. NGOs cannot, in that case, cannot innovate any ideas. They have to follow the mandate, and they are basically the conformist NGOs. On the basis of leadership style, we can also categorize NGOs like we have enterprise NGOs, we also have maintenance NGOs, we also have mm, development NGOs at the same time. And they are also working. All those NGOs are basically come under these linkages, but you see, their focus is the leadership. Now you see, okay, this is basically about very brief way I am telling you about Go and NGOs. But when you try to understand the relationship between Go and NGOs, you have a history of honeymoon period and transient period. Okay, so I'm not going to go that detail, or maybe in one class later we can discuss about it. Then briefly I will discuss about some of the remedies and the challenges that the NGOs usually have. So remedies in challenges are there, like you see, there is also a complaint about misappropriation of funds, misuse of the funds. Okay, getting the fund itself is a problem, challenge for NGOs. They get funds from the donor, from government, from IGOs, from even other members, private sectors, right? From sponsorship, they get the funds. But at the same time, there is an issue related to misappropriation of funds. Leadership style happen to be another issue of concern and the challenge, because most of the time NGOs are also run by like elderly people, and they do have a authoritarian style of governing, and hence we have seen that there are surveys across many NGOs about the leadership style. They are not an entrepreneur manager. They are basically they are being called maintenance manager, or you see they are working under the banner of development organization only. So they will not accept the new ideas and innovation of the fresh blood and the youth. So that leadership crisis is there, which happens to be one challenge. Another challenge is you see in terms of interlocking of authorities. Suppose one person who becomes the treasurer, who becomes the president, who becomes the general secretary, who becomes the you see governing body member of that NGO. So have a decision in each and everything. But it facilitates the communication, exchange of services, and also facilitates the delivery of services. But at the same time, that new blood and fresh blood is not allowed to come, and that happens to be one particular challenge for NGOs. Okay. Modernization, when you talk about modernization, that happens to bring another challenge to NGOs. You see, we're talking more about the expertise, looking more about managerial expertise, professional expertise, and for that also you need to carry out timely training program. And you can carry that out when you have funds. When you have paucity of funds, you cannot carry out any kind of training programs, right? So that happens to be one challenge, right? Then also we have challenge regarding the funds only, paucity of funds. When we say that administrative, we say that problem related to administrative expenditures. So whenever they get the funds from the donor, they only involve themselves in any kind of project, okay, to be finished within a specific timeline. So those projects are also time bound, their activities are also time bound, okay. Beyond that they cannot work. So whatever funds they receive, okay, so we get to find that in the name of administrative expenses, they can only work on contingencies. Okay, contingencies. But those funds do not have a heading or category like you see administrative expenses. They get the fund to finish the project. So that becomes a challenge for NGO. But because for like administration also they need some amount of money, but that is not provided. That is not becoming a part of the money and the fund they generated from the donor. There is no typical head that this is called administrative expense. So whatever contingencies, like contingency amount come is supposed to be invested as an administrative expenses. That is also another challenge of the NGOs. Like that way, we have numerous challenges. We'll be discussing about it in the next class, perhaps. That is also. That is all right. Okay. If you have any issues, any problem, you can discuss about it. Be on Monday. Okay.